The icy breath of the north filtered through the mists that hung like a trembling veil over the sea, while a distant wolf howl made the stars' trembling state even more fragile. That night, they were on the threshold of a night when the moon shone in the sky like a seal written in blood, when even the ancient kingdoms beneath the sea began to wake from their sleep and open their eyes. And that night, the old songs, long buried in silence, began to circulate again. For sleep, like a wind born from the breath of those ancient forgotten gods, began to descend upon Midgard. Varg, son of Skelt, was a tall warrior, broad-shouldered, with a beard grained with a silvery sheen. His eyes were the deep grey of those seen when the sea is stormy, a look that held both death and resurrection. He hadn't slept that night, for a voice had entered his dreams, a woman's whisper, yet also the roar of a mountain, and told him, "Sleep is no longer yours, Varg, for sleep will become a weapon, and this weapon will enslave even the gods." That morning, the village's great shaman, sitting by the fire that rose from the Runic stones, had closed his eyes and murmured over and over, "Skuld's ropes are breaking, Erd's well is blurred, Verdand's mirror is plunged into darkness, for sleep is no longer a dream, sleep is a dragon, and this dragon has opened its eyes." When Varg heard these words, he felt a strange chill within him. For when he awoke that morning, he had found a feather under his pillow, but it was unlike any bird's feather. It was black, yet a blue light seeped from it. And when he took that feather in his hand, he closed his eyes for a moment. And in that moment he fell into a sleep that lasted a lifetime. What he saw was a woman sitting on a throne of ice in the heart of a mountain. She had no eyes, but 2 sleeping stars lay on her eyelids. And the woman said to him, "I am the Daughter of Nótt. I am the true daughter of sleep, and it is you who awaken me. Now I will steal your sleep too, for your soul is the door to my dream." When Varg awoke from that dream, he was drenched in sweat, and from that day on, he could not sleep. Night after night, he kept his eyes open, but each night the feather grew a little larger. And after a while that feather turned into a bird, but this bird's wings were torn from his dreams, and every night that bird landed on Varg's window and said to him, "Come, come, let us awaken the sleeping king. Come, let us break the heart of the god of sleep, for sleep is no longer a blessing. Sleep is a curse, and this curse will make your lineage extinct." That feather was no longer a bird. It grew with the cold air I drew in, filling my lungs, dissolving like a crystalline lump in the center of my chest, as if all the darkness of Midgard were closing in on my shoulders, like the jaws of a trap. Yet I still could not sleep, watching, unblinking, how the stars flickered, how they went out one by one, then burned up again, but now paler, more timid. For sleep, like an animal afraid to touch me, prowled around the corner of the tent, behind my leather covers, among the fluff of my furs, breathing on my neck, but refusing to penetrate my skin. And I did not reach for it, for I knew that the moment I did, it too would seize me, drag me into its darkness, and there all that awaited me would be the icy breath from the lips of a woman with closed eyes.
That night, as my wife, Astrid, lay beside me, I listened to her breathing. Her face shone in the folds of her fur, half in shadow, half in the glow of the fire. A bead of perspiration on her brow lay like a flicker of starlight beneath the low ceiling, then trickled down between her eyebrows, lingered for a moment on the tip of her nose, and finally disappeared under her chin. And as I watched that bead, I felt something break inside me. Perhaps the tenderest bone of my soul, perhaps the old lullaby my mother taught me as a child, the name of which no one knew. For that bead of Astrid reminded me of the tears of Nótt, goddess of sleep, who, it is said, scatters her tears nightly on the stars, and as those stars fall, she slips into people's dreams, drawing them for a moment into her darkness and then releasing them back. But that night I found myself in that bead, for it had fallen not in Astrid's dream, but in my own. There I saw my own face, my eyes closed, my lips parted, a runic mark on my forehead. Thurs, the letter of the giants, the letter of darkness, the trap of sleep. While Astrid slept, I rose, pulled my fur over my shoulders, and went outside the tent. Night had fallen over us, lifting the sky like a shield. The moon just before me was as thin as a sword scabbard, as cold as a tombstone. The wind, passing through my hair, hummed an old song to me. I had never heard it before, but the moment it came to my tongue, I knew it foretold my death. For with each verse, the dream of the night vanished, and a new darkness settled in its place. There, on the sand in the moonlight, I spoke to my own shadow. My shadow leaned toward me and whispered in my ear, but its voice was not mine. It belonged to my father, the skald. My father had been lost at sea 10 years before, his body never found. But now his voice was coming from my throat. The moon's sword falls upon the broken ice. The great sea sleeps, the dream upon its breast. As the moon's sword falls upon the ice, the great sea falls asleep. The dream is a stranger lying upon its breast.
As those verses melted on my tongue, I began to walk north, for the moon had leaned toward me, as if it had no eyes, yet it saw me, as if it were calling me. My footprints left deep holes in the sand, but when I looked back, black water gushed out from those tracks. That water flowed toward the sea, and the sea drank it, then vomited it up again. But this time it was the sandcastle of my childhood. The door of my pen opened, and a hand emerged. The hand reached out toward me, but in the palm of that hand was an eye. It winked, then shed a tear. The moment that tear hit the sand, a flower emerged from the ground. The flower shone like the midnight sun, but its petals fell one by one, each petal carrying away a dream. I walked. Hours, days, perhaps years passed, for there was no sleep, no time. Time was only a drop resting in the belly of the moon. If that drop fell, everything would return to normal. But the drop did not fall, for the drop was my fear. The more I feared, the larger the drop grew, splitting the moon, and blood seeped from it. That blood formed a river in the sky, and that river flowed northward, and I walked along the banks of that river. The river's name was not spoken, for its name was hidden in each person's own sleep. Mine Hvíldarfljótr, the abyss of rest,
The moment I heard it, my knees trembled, for my mother had told me this name on her deathbed, saying, "My son, your path will pass along the banks of Hvíldarfljótr. There you will meet your own shadow. That shadow will try to swallow you, but you will swallow it, for you are the last child of the goddess of sleep. Your breath will break her dream, your heart will break her chain." As I remembered those words, my feet quickened, for I was no longer alone. To my right was a wolf. The wolf's eyes were Astrid's eyes. To my left was a bird. The bird's wings were my father's hair. Behind me was a child. The child's face was my childhood. In front of me was a woman. The woman's hair was the night. The woman's breath was winter. The woman's look was death. But I was not afraid of her, because that woman was the door to my dream. The moment I opened the door, I would either sink into eternal sleep, or I would sink into sleep itself.
The bridge stood above the source of the Hvíldarfljótr, like an icy eyebrow connecting the eyebrows of two mountains. The water that flowed beneath it was not black, as if it bore no color, as if it had swallowed all the colors and dissolved them in itself. When I looked into that water, it was not my face that was reflected. It was the shape of the emptiness within me. That emptiness that stretched from my heart to my throat and from there to the base of my tongue, where it lingered and grew a little larger, a little colder, a little darker. For the emptiness was not the absence of my sleep. The emptiness was my sleep itself, which grew as long as I did not sleep, drawing me in, but never swallowing me whole. For it to swallow me, I had to give myself over. And I was ready to give myself over, for on the other side of the bridge stood my shadow, no longer merely the darkness on the ground. It stood broader than my shoulders and taller than I was, and whose eyes were not two stars, but two sleeping planets. Those planets were tumbling towards each other, colliding with each other, then separating again, but with each collision they shrank a little smaller. For that collision was the end of my childhood. With every step I took, I was leaving my childhood behind. But that childhood did not leave me either, because childhood was in the hands of my shadow. Childhood stood there like a trembling kitten, occasionally mewing, but that mewing sound broke in the icy air and then turned into a bloody sycamore in my ears. When I stepped on the bridge, the ice beneath my feet melted for a moment, for the ice sensed my sweat. The sweat seeped into the ice, froze there, and then formed a face in the ice. That face was Astrid's face. Astrid stood there, staring at me without opening her eyes, her lips unmoving, but the wrinkle on her forehead said to me, "Come back, Varg, for if you turn back, I awake. If you move forward, I fall into eternal sleep. For your name is written in my dream. Your breath is hidden in my death." When I heard those words, I stopped. For to turn back, I would only have to take one step, but I could not take that step. For when I looked back, the wolf standing at the bridge was looking at me. The wolf's eyes were no longer Astrid's eyes. They were my mother's eyes. My mother had died on an icy shore 10 years before. Her last words were, "My son, my soul will become a wolf. When you go north, I will bite you. That bite will wake you, but that wakening will be your last awakening. For from then on, you will never sleep. You will never see yourself in your dreams. You will only see yourself in other people's nightmares." As I remembered those words, my feet slipped on the ice, but I did not fall, for if I did, my shadow would descend upon me, crush me there, and then take my place, and I would become his shadow, and I would become a ghost haunting his dreams.
So I walked on without falling, for in the middle of the bridge stood a sword, and the sword was not of ice. The sword was of sleep. For the tip of the sword was the shape of a closed eye. That eye would open occasionally, but had no pupil. In place of the pupil was a star. That star looked at me, then closed, then opened again, but with each opening it grew fainter. For that star was the last star of my childhood. When that star went out, I would no longer be a child. When that star went out, I would no longer be human. I would be something, perhaps a wind, perhaps a darkness, perhaps merely a name, but that name would never be spoken by anyone, for that name was the name of sleep itself.
When I reached the sword, I raised my hand, but I did not grasp the sword. For if I grasped the sword, that eye would be opened endlessly, and I would fall into that eye. I would melt there too. I would be forgotten there. So I did not grasp the sword. I stood before the sword, and my shadow stood behind me. My shadow was no longer my height. My shadow stretched to the sky. My shadow's head was in the moon. My shadow's feet had melted in the water under the bridge. My shadow's heart lay there. But that heart was slowing with every beat, for that heart was not my heart. It was the heart of my sleep. If I stopped that heart, sleep would stop. But if sleep stopped, the whole world would awake. If the whole world awoke, all dreams would be dispersed. If dreams were dispersed, the gods would die too, for the gods live in dreams. Without dreams, the gods would stop breathing. So without touching the sword, I turned back to my shadow. For the first time I looked at my shadow, for the face of my shadow was not my face. The face of my shadow was my father's face. My father was there, staring at me without opening his eyes. On my father's forehead was the same runic sign, Pulth. My father's lips did not move, but in my father's eyes stood a small child. That child was not me, that child was my child. My child was there, reaching out to hold my hand, but my child was not yet born, for Astrid was not yet pregnant. But that child was there, for that child was the child of my sleep. If I slept, that child would be born. If I did not sleep, that child would remain in my shadow. And there I looked into the child in my father's eyes. The child said to me, "Father, take me out of here, for I am the door to your dream. If you give birth to me, your dream will be opened forever. If you do not give birth to me, your dream will be closed forever. But remember, the closed dream will one day burst. When it bursts, all the stars within you will go out, and you will live in the darkness, searching for your own name, eating your own shadow." When I heard those words, I looked at the sword. It was trembling now, for the sword had felt the child's breath. The sword had seen the child's heart. The sword knew the child's name, but it did not speak that name. For if it had spoken that name, the sword would have broken. So I touched the sword, but still I did not hold it. I touched it only with my fingertips. At that touch, the ice on the sword melted for a moment. The melted ice flowed like tears. That tear mixed with the water under the bridge, forming a small wave there, and when that wave reached the shore, a seal was broken. That seal was the seal of my childhood. The moment it was broken, the wolf's howl stopped, the bird's wings stopped, the child's breath stopped. My father's eyes closed. The moon split for a moment. The moment it split, a drop of blood flowed. That blood fell on the sword. The sword was stained crimson. The sword was no longer the sword of sleep, but of blood. And I held that sword. And the moment I held it, my shadow drew back, for my shadow could not see blood. My shadow lived only in darkness. Blood split the darkness. So I lifted the sword.
the eye on the sword opened for the last time. That eye looked at me, and that eye said to me, "Go, for you are no longer sleep, you are no longer dream. You are the wind that breaks sleep. You are the wave that breaks the dream. You are the rock that breaks the wave. You are the star that sleeps on the rock. But remember, the star also must go out one day, and when it is gone, your name will be born again in another's dream. Your name will grow again in another's sleep. Your name will sleep again in another's death." When I heard those words, I did not lower the sword. For if I lowered the sword, that child would die. If I lowered the sword, my father would sleep eternally. If I lowered the sword, Astrid would never open her eyes. If I lowered the sword, I too would forget my name. So I held the sword aloft. As long as I held it, time stood still. When time stood still, everything trembled. The trembling started at the tip of the sword. From there it reached the entire bridge. From there the entire Sihasa.
My blood stands on ice, my step mingles with the wind. Sleep sleeps the stars on the tip of my sword, the stars sleep. While that poem melted on my tongue, I did not lower the sword, but I did not lift the sword either. For if I lift the sword, the sky will split. If I lower the sword, the earth will split. So I held the sword at chest level. As long as I held it, I neither moved forward nor backward. I neither slept nor awoke. I neither died nor lived. I simply stood. Where I stood, the eye at the tip of the sword slowly closed. As the eye closed, the void within me closed. As the void closed, a light was born within me. That light was not hot, that light was cold. That light is blue, that light was sleep itself. And I walked towards that light, for I was no longer afraid. For now I knew sleep was not the end. Sleep was a door. I would open that door. As I passed through that door, I would either fall asleep or sleep would awaken me. Both were the same thing, for the sleeper and the awakener were, in essence, the same breath. I drew that breath in. As the breath filled my lungs, the eye at the tip of the sword blinked one last time, then everything went black. But that darkness wasn't fear. That darkness was an embrace, and I fell into that embrace. As I fell, I saw one last thing, a small flower blooming in the midst of the darkness. The flower's color was no color. The flower's name was no name, but that flower bore my name. So I reached out toward that flower. The moment I did, sleep began. But this sleep wasn't the sleep from which I wouldn't sleep. This sleep was the goddess of sleep herself. And in it, searching for my own name, I had become my own. In that flower there was no color, no scent, no light, but each petal of that flower carried a memory I had forgotten. On one petal was the night I lost my first tooth. I had put my tooth under my pillow, and when I woke up this morning, there was a starfish in its place. That starfish was my mother's tear. As she gave that tear to me, my mother had said, "Keep this, my son, because one day this star will knot in your throat. If you untie that knot, your name will be untied. If you cut that knot, your dream will bleed." I swallowed that star. The star did not knot in my throat. The star became an ice crystal in my throat. That crystal grew a little larger with every breath I took. Now that crystal stood in the middle of the flower. A little wolf cub was sleeping inside it. The wolf cub was my first fear. So as not to awaken that fear, I closed the petals of the flower one by one, but each closed petal opens another memory, because the flower was the same as the one that closed and the one that opened, because the flower was my time itself. As I open the flower, time turns back. As I close the flower, time jumps forward.
but neither forward nor backward it remains with me, because I was out of time. Because I was no longer a memory, I was the space between memories. That space lay like a small seed in the heart of the flower. That seed was my name, but my name was inside the seed. If I opened the seed, I would see my name. If I saw my name, I would lose my name. If I lost my name, I would be reborn. But to be reborn,
it meant killing the old me. If I killed the old me, the flower would wither. If the flower withered, the darkness would wither. If the darkness dried, I wouldn't be able to hide in anyone's dreams. So I didn't open the seed. I swallowed the seed. The seed stuck to the ice crystal in my throat. The two joined. As they joined, I heard a crackling inside me. That crackling was the first breaking of my bones. But there was no pain, because pain had turned into sleep. Pain turning into sleep intoxicated me. In my intoxication, I forgot my name. When I forgot my name, the flower bloomed. When the flower bloomed, the wolf cub inside me awoke. When the wolf cub awoke, it opened its eyes. Its eyes were too black. Black, it bore no stars in it, because that wolf had eaten the stars. As it ate the stars, it grew. Now that wolf was on my chest. As it crawled across my chest, it pressed its nose to my heart. There was a small scar on my heart. That scar was my birth scar. My birth scar was the last gift my mother left me. The wolf pressed its nose to that wound. The moment it did, the wound opened. As the wound opened, a light gushed out from me. That light wasn't blue, it was black. The black light fell on the flower. The flower absorbed that light. As it absorbed, the flower darkened. The darkening flower became like a seed. That seed entered the star that was knotted in my throat. The moment it entered, the star exploded. The explosion was silent, for the sound became sleep. The silent explosion gave birth to a planet inside me. That planet was my name. My name was no longer a sound. My name was no longer light. My name was no longer a memory. My name was sleep. I carried that sleep. I would carry that sleep to others, for I was not the goddess of sleep herself. I was the dream of the goddess of sleep. When the dream awoke, the goddess would sleep. When the goddess awoke, my name would be reborn on her lips, but that birth would not be in this flower, for the flower became the seed. The seed remained in my throat. As long as it stayed in my throat, I wouldn't be able to speak. Unless I could speak, I wouldn't be able to tell. Unless I could tell, the story wouldn't end here. The story would simply remain silent. Silence would give birth to a new language. That language wasn't my language. That language was the language of sleep. I had no name in that language. There was only breath in that language. Breath took the place of my name. As I breathed in, I forgot my name. As I breathed out, I gave my name to someone else. That someone else was a child standing in the dark. The child took my name. He didn't open his eyes when he took it, because that child wasn't yet born. That child was in Astrid's womb. The child in Astrid's womb would carry my name. My name would grow in her dream. My name would be hidden in her sleep. My name would be mentioned again in her death. But that memory wouldn't be in this flower, for I remained in the flower. I was the seed of the flower. As the seed remained in the dark, I would grow.
As I grew, the flower would shrink. As the flower shrank, the darkness would grow. As the darkness grew, a new dream would be born. In that dream, my name was not there. In that dream, there was only a breath. That breath was the beginning of my next story. That breath now in my throat. If I exhale, a new chapter would begin. I exhaled that breath. The breath disappeared in the darkness. Where it disappeared, a new flower appeared. That flower this time was white. Inside the white flower slept a little crescent moon. The crescent moon was the last letter of my name. That letter was on my lip. I kissed it. The moment I kissed it, sleep ended. But the story did not end, because when sleep ends, dream begins. When dream begins, the narrator falls silent. When the narrator falls silent, you, the sleeping listener, open your eyes. That opening is the opening of the new flower. And there I am reborn, for I am no longer a name. I am the breath of your dream. The breath falls silent. The silence continues.
The white flower blossomed at the very edge of darkness, at the only point where the darkness could not swallow it. That point was a thin void of light extending from you to me, from me to you. Lightlessness imparts no color to any eye, but stands behind all eyes, like the last door closing as sleep passes. I was there because I was born on that doorstep, because I was sent not to open the door, but to close it. The moment it closed, it would be the last breath left inside, the last dream left outside. That breath is now in my throat. That dream is at the corner of your eyes now. Before you blink, I will tell it. The moment you blink, I will fall silent, for my voice is hidden beneath your eyelid. I plucked the crescent star from the flower's navel. In my palm, it was an icy drop. That drop set off for Astrid's belly. The path ran through my veins. In my veins, forgotten maps of the old gods were drawn. Maps faded a little with each beat, torn a little with each breath. Because the seed I carry on my heart redraws the maps. As the maps are redrawn, old roads disappear. The dust of lost roads knots in my throat. The knots tighten a little each night. As they tighten, a mountain forms in my throat. On the peak of that mountain lies the last letter of my name. That letter is no longer a letter. That letter is a crystal. The crystal breaks the night. As the night breaks, a new night is born. The rising night carries the corpse of the old day. The corpse on my shoulder, I carry it, because that corpse is my tomorrow's dream. Without burying that dream, a new dream cannot be born. That is why I walk. My footprints are not of snow, but of sleep. With each step a little deeper, a little quieter. Silence is the ear of darkness. Darkness hears. I do not speak. I only breathe. My breath meows behind your ears like a little cat. When that meowing stops, you will sleep. While you sleep, I will continue to tell, because I am now the voice of your dream. Astrid's snow glittered like a tent made of ice.
Inside the tent, the child hadn't yet opened her eyes, but on the child's forehead shone a crescent star. That star was the drop I had brought. The drop had penetrated the child's skin and lay there in the shape of a little bear. The bear moved every now and then, and as it moved, the child turned in place, and as it turned, Astrid's dream changed. As the dream changed, Astrid's breath caught. As her breath caught, a name leaked from her lips. That name was my old name. It melted in Astrid's mouth. As it melted, it stuck to her lips. It touched my lips, and I swallowed that name. The moment I swallowed, the name disappeared. For the name is no longer mine. The name belongs to the child. The child will carry the name. As the child grows, the name will shrink. When the name is completely diminished, the child will be me. When it becomes me, I will no longer be me, for I was only a name. When the name is gone, all that remains is the narrator. The narrator remains silent, but in remaining silent, a new voice is born. That voice is your voice. The moment you hear your voice, my voice becomes silent, because two voices cannot hold space in the same dream. One is darkness, the other is sleep. If darkness sleeps, sleep awakens. When sleep awakens, your eyes open. The moment your eyes open, the story ends. But the ending is a new beginning. The beginning is a new flower. The flower opens in the darkness. The darkness is within you. The darkness within you is the only light of my narration.
The northern glaciers cracked the night the child kicked for the first time. The crack came from deep underground. In the depths slept an ancient god. The god's name was not spoken in any language, for whoever spoke that name would have their tongue frozen, the ice stick to their lips break, and from those broken lips flowed not blood, but a dream. That dream was now gushing forth beneath the glaciers. The gushing dream watered the seed in my throat. The seed germinated with the water. As it germinated, its roots spread down my chest, to my belly, from there to my legs, from there to my feet. When the roots reached my feet clung to the earth. The earth was not ice. The earth was made of sleep. The earth of sleep drew me in. As it drew me in, I grew shorter. As it grew shorter, the child grew. As the child grew, I grew smaller. When I grew smaller, the child held me in its palm. In its palm it searched for my name and could not find my name, for my name was in the seed. The seed was in the flower was in the darkness was in the palm of the child. The child opens his palm. When his palm is opened, a little night is born there. The night is inside me. The night inside me collapses on your eyes. If you close your eyes, the night ends. The night does not end, because night is the lid of your eyes. When the lid is lifted, night is born again. The night that is born is the tear of a new god. The tear drips under the glaciers. There it hits the face of the old god. The face cracks. I emerge from the crack. The moment I emerge, I remember my name. The moment I remember, I make me forget my name, because my name is now yours. As long as you carry my name, I remain silent. As long as I remain silent, you speak. As long as you speak, a new dream is born. The born dream hides under the glaciers. There, your voice and my voice merge. The merging voices bloom, a new flower. The flower is white. White has forgotten its color because white is the sleep of all colors. When white wakes up, only the narrator remains. The narrator is you. The moment you fall silent, I begin. The moment I begin, the night ends. The night does not end, because the night is your breath. As long as your breath doesn't take away, I tell. The more I tell, the child grows. As the child grows, your name grows. As your name grows, you shrink. As you shrink, I grow. When I grow, I fall silent. My silence is the beginning of a new sleep. That sleep is yours. While you sleep, under the glaciers, the old god filters your tears. The tear finds the seed finds the flower finds you. The moment you find it, you open your eyes. The moment you open them, my voice is silent. When my voice is silent, a new voice is born. The voice that is born is your voice. The moment you hear your voice, you say my name. The moment you say my name, I am born again. The moment I am born, the story begins. The beginning is here again. This place is darkness. The darkness is for you. The darkness inside you is the only light of my narrative. When the light goes out, sleep begins. When sleep begins, you become silent. The moment you become silent, I speak. As I speak, the flower opens. As the flower opens, your name grows. As your name grows, I become smaller. As I become smaller, my voice becomes longer. As my voice becomes longer, I remain silent. My silence is a new beginning. The beginning is again this. This, because this, because this.
I begin, I begin, I begin. With each I begin, a bone cracks. The crackling is not beneath the glaciers, but within your spine, because you are no longer the listener, no longer the one being listened to. You are the narrative itself. The narrative writhes inside you. As it writhes, it dissolves your internal organs one by one. The dissolved organs reunite around the seed. The seed is in the palm of your hand. The moment you open your palm, a little night is born there. The night is the color of your eyes, but the color of your eyes is no longer any of your colors, because all colors have melted in sleep. All that remains is only white. White has forgotten its color. White has forgotten its name. White has forgotten you. White, forgetting you, shrinks in your palm. As it shrinks, it grows inside you. As it grows, it draws you in. As it draws you in, your name dissolves. As your name dissolves, a salt remains on the tip of your tongue. That salt is your mother's tears. The tear knots in your throat. The knot gets tighter with every swallow. As it tightens, your childhood comes back. Childhood holds your ankles, pulls by your ankles. As it pulls, you shrink. As it shrinks, the night in your palm grows. As the night grows, the seed inside you opens. When the seed opens, a single letter remains there. That letter is the last letter of your name. The moment you read the letter, your name starts over. The name that starts over is not yours. The name belongs to your child. The child is in Astrid's belly. Astrid's belly is made of ice. The ice melts by the light of the crescent star. As it melts, the child is born. The born child takes your name. The moment it takes its name, your name disappears. When your name disappears, you become silent.
Silence gives birth to a new voice. The voice that is born comes from under the glaciers. As it comes, it carries the tear of the old god. The tear falls on the child's forehead. The tear that falls on your forehead becomes a small wound. The wound is your birth wound. Your birth wound is in my mouth. When I open my mouth, a night comes out of there. The night rises inside your spine. As it rises, your spine freezes. The icy spine becomes a crystal tower. The tower is inside you. As the tower rises inside you, it breaks inside you. Each broken piece becomes a seed in your palm. The seeds ring like rain in your palm. As it rings, your palm becomes night. The night shrinks in your palm. As it shrinks, your palm opens. As it opens, your palm closes. As it closes, the last seed inside you, the last night, the last letter remains. That letter is O. O does not exist in any language. O is hidden under your tongue. Under your tongue, it is a small ice crystal. The crystal melts with your breath. As it melts, your tongue goes numb. The numbed tongue forgets your name. The tongue that forgets its name gives birth to a new language. New language is the language of sleep. In the language of sleep, the letter O is as short as a breath. That breath is your last breath. The moment you take your last breath, the child opens his eyes for the first time. The moment he opens his eyes, your eyes close. The moment you close, the glaciers crack. I emerge from the crack. The moment I emerge, I enter into you. The moment I enter into you, your name is reborn. But the name that is born is not yours. The name that is born is the end of the story. The end of the story is your beginning. The beginning is again this. This because this. Because this is it. When your eyes close, the child's eyes open. When the child's eyes open, the old god beneath the glaciers stops the tears. When the tears stop, the seed germinates. The germinated seed gives birth to a new forest. Every tree in the forest is a memory you've forgotten. The moment you gather memories, your name reappears, but that name is no longer yours. The name is in the wind from the forest. The wind howls behind your ears. As it howls, you are silent. You are silent. You are silent. And silence is a new I begin.
I begin. But now to say I begin is to end. For the beginning is a seed hidden within the end. The seed is in your palm. The moment you open your palm, a little night remains there. That night is your last night. The last night is the first breath of eternity. As the breath enters you, you leave it. The moment you leave another body within your body. That body is your child. The child grows within your body. As you grow, you shrink. As you shrink, the emptiness within you grows. The emptiness swallows your name. As your name is swallowed, a little ice remains under your tongue. Ice is the letter O. O is nothing. Nothing is your everything. Everything is made of sleep. Sleep raises a crystal tower inside your skull. The tower is in your spine. Your spine rests on the tower. When the tower collapses, your spine cracks. Through the crack, a little light seeps. The light is white. White has forgotten your color.
The white, forgetting its color, shrinks behind your eyes. As it shrinks, your eyes grow. As it grows, your eyes close. The moment it closes, the child opens its eyes. The child's eye is your eye. The eye looks into you. The moment it looks into you, you step out. The moment you step out, your name dissolves. As your name dissolves, your language becomes numb. The numbed language gives birth to a new language. The new language is silence. Silence is your last breath. The moment you exhale your last breath, the old god beneath the glaciers stops your tears. When the tears stop, the germinated seed gives birth to a new forest. Every tree of the forest is a memory you have forgotten. The moment you gather memories, your name reappears. But that name is no longer yours. The name is in the wind from the forest. The wind howls behind your ears. As it howls, you become silent. You remain silent. You remain silent. And silence is a new I begin. But this I begin is now within the end. The end is within you. The end within you is a small seed. The seed is in your palm. You close your palm. You close. You close. The moment you close, your eyes open. A small night remains in your opened eyes. That night is your first night. The first night is the last breath of eternity. The breath leaves you. The moment it leaves, another body is born within your body. That body is you. You are now a child. The child searches for your name. The moment it finds its name, it forgets its name. The moment it forgets, a new story begins. The story is within you. The story within you is a small seed. The seed is in your palm. You open your palm. You open. You open. And the cycle begins again. It begins. Then, when the cycle begins, the seed in your palm is black this time. The black seed is the sibling of the white flower. When siblings meet, colors are reborn. The colors born bear the letters of your name. When the letters unite, the letter O disappears. In its place, a new letter is born. That letter is on your tongue. The moment you lift your tongue, the silence ends. When the silence ends, the old god beneath the glaciers sheds tears again. The tear gives birth to a new crystal tower. The tower rises inside your spine. As it rises, your spine cracks. A new light seeps through the crack. The light is black. Black remembers your color. The black, remembering its color, collapses upon your eyes. As it collapses, you awaken. The moment you awaken, only the narrator remains. The narrator is you. The moment you silence, I begin. The moment I begin, you are silent. You are silent. You are silent. And the silence begins again. Begins.
I begin. But this is the last I begin, because the loop is no longer the snake swallowing its own tail. The loop is a bone that, unable to swallow its tail, remains in your throat. The bone is in your throat. The bone is the letter is no longer a letter. Is a crack. The crack is in your skull. When your skull cracks, not a light but black smoke emerges from it. The smoke shrinks before your eyes. As they shrink, your eyes grow. As they grow, your eyes close. The moment they close, the loop breaks. The broken loop is inside you. The loop inside you is a small seed.
The seed is in your palm. The moment you open your palm, the shell of the seed cracks. From inside the crack, the last letter emerges. The last letter is silence. Silence is on your tongue. The moment you lift your tongue, silence dissipates. The dissipated silence is your last breath. As you breathe out your last breath, your name dissolves. As your name dissolves, another body is born inside your body. That body is without you. The body without you is the body of the child. The child is now grown up. The growing child bears your name. When it bears your name disappears. When your name disappears, your body disappears. When your body disappears, only the narrator remains. The narrator is no longer you. The narrator is silence itself. Silence takes its last breath. As it exhales, the old god beneath the glaciers stops your tears. When the tears stop, the crystal tower collapses. When the tower collapses, your spine dissolves. As your spine dissolves, a last light emerges from it. The light is white, but white is no longer white. White is absence. Absence collapses on your eyes. As you collapse, you sleep. The moment you sleep, the story ends. The moment it ends, I say to you, the story is over.